I just finished watching the show about Dr. Phil, Dirty Rotten Scandals, and I want to talk about it in terms of cult tactics he uses, but I also want to talk about it in terms of how talk shows and television works and some other stuff too. Let me show you a little clip first.
Doctor, tell it like it is. Phil McGraw.
I would like for people to have a real idea about Dr. Phil.
They're set up to fail. They're manipulated.
We had to do absolutely everything that we could to get them there.
I had no say in anything at all the entire time we were there.
Fear is permanent every day.
It was a cult. You feel like you're working for the devil.
Technically, he's not a real doctor, but he's Dr. Phil. That's his whole brand.
So you even hear somebody who worked on the show is talking about it as if it is a cult. But from the perspective of the people who are going to be on the show, the first thing that a cult does is recruit vulnerable people. The second step is to lure with deception. Now, this happens over a long period of time, and it did with Dr. Phil too. Remember, he was on Oprah for several years before he had his own show. Then even on his own show, he starts out as being kind of a happy-go-lucky, ne'er-do-well fellow, and then slowly it begins to be more and more kind of like Maury Povich. And one of the things they talk about on the show is that as the show progressed, he let his license lapse. Now, I don't know that there's a connection between him possibly being sued because he was a licensed doctor and the fact that he became more and more sensational, but I'm going to guess it's probably connected. The other thing about Dr. Phil, if you watched him over time, is that the show became more and more and more marketing driven. It wasn't just about him. It was about his sons. It was about his wife who sat in the audience. The thing was about talk shows at that time, they were going to do everything they could to make the show as dramatic as possible. I was on one of the makeover shows one time just for a segment, just because I wanted to meet Tim Gunn because I like him. But anyway, when they asked me to send them the before picture, they said, no, stick out your stomach so you look like you're fatter. Right? So they manipulate all of this to make it seem like it's worse. Now, on Dr. Phil, they're not just doing like a physical clothing makeover. They're supposedly doing like a mental health makeover. And you will see over the course of this series where they talk about people who worked on the show, and he really couldn't care less. Now, the important thing to bear in mind is this. This is on a cable TV network. This is not on YouTube or TikTok. It's on a TV show. Lawyers went over this thing with a fine-tooth comb, and they would not have put it on the air if they hadn't made sure all of this stuff was real. Let me say this as well. Dr. Phil is very tied into the evangelical community. I first studied him when I wrote my second book called Brands of Faith. He used to appear at the Crystal Cathedral. His wife is very tied into the evangelical women's community. She used to give talks to that group, and that's how her book became a bestseller. What happens in the evangelical community is when somebody likes a book, it is part of their tradition to pass the book on to someone else. But what they do, and what Robin McGraw did, was say, okay, I'll come talk, but part of the talk is you also have to buy my copies of the book. And that's how somebody ends up on the top of the bestseller list really, really quickly. All of this to say, I'm very happy that somebody has come out and told us exactly who Dr. Phil is. We suspected it, now we know for sure. Next time, I'm going to talk a bit about Oprah and how I fought back against her.